Hello, and welcome to the Pit Pony podcast with myself, Sharon Cawley,
and me, Sarah Dunwood,
in which we talk to teachers from all walks of life who exited the classroom from what they thought was a job for life and thrived on the other side of teaching. Coming up in this episode...
But I had a period of, I had another big epileptic seizure and a period of sort of 8 years of instability. And I put that down to the sort of added stress. It's a known trigger, amongst other things, the stress and the tiredness. And so I've taken control of one of the only controllable things, and I've taken that away and taken that stress away. And
hello and welcome to another episode of the Pit Pony podcast. Great guest today. There's going to be a range of northern accents, I suspect, going on through this particular episode. It really does warm my heart to introduce Mark Thompson to our podcast today. Mark was born to teach. In his own words, it was all he ever wanted to do. Even as a kid in school, wanted to be a teacher, did his work experience in a school. So that's what he wanted to do. And all in all, he taught for over 18 years. Subjects computing and business, a good old dyed-in-the-wool teacher. 2011, though, he's out and hemorrhages out to a certain extent, which he is going to talk us through today, and we will listen with deep gratitude. So, Mark Thompson, dyed-in-the-wool teacher, it's all I ever want to do. What are you up to these days, please, pal?
I'm a tutor chaperone for children on film and TV sets.
Cannot wait to get into this. But before we do that, and how you created that world for yourself, can you take me back to 2011, please? 2011, where circumstances that you described to me previously, you feel you have no alternative but to leave a job you love. Can you talk us through that time in your life, please, Mark? And thank you.
It was probably the best thing that happened was being made redundant, because it forced me to make a decision. I'd been in a school that I was really unhappy in for quite some time, but didn't want to leave that job that I loved. I loved working with the kids and I loved being a teacher. I hated everything else about it. I hated the constant chipping away at who I was. And I was miserable with it. I was exhausted and it was just dragging us down. So that redundancy gave me the opportunity to make a break.
Okay, thanks, Mark. And you talk about the dragging you down. You said to me once you felt constantly ground down. What was it? For somebody listening to this, they're going to be saying, well, you loved working with the kids. It's all you've ever wanted to be. What kind of stuff ground you down?
So it's a slow, really slow process, but it was the chipping away of your self-confidence and ridiculous deadlines, next day deadlines. People, well, I'll have no doubt come across those. They're really, really unrealistic deadlines that are just impossible to meet. The box of margarine that I'd bring home, look at really guiltily in the corner, and then take back. And it would just be known as the big red box, and it would just stare at us and make us feel terrible over holidays and over the weekends. And it was just a never-ending box of margarine, and it was that chipping away of my confidence, really, that it's probably taken from then another 10 years to get back.
That's interesting. That's interesting to hear you talk about that, the deadlines, the workload, the unrealistic aspect of it. You told me that you felt it was ridiculously unachievable what you were doing on a day-to-day basis. So how did that impact you physically?
So as well as the usual of anxiety, and at that I did at the time. I was sort of particularly low and particularly anxious. I'd had one seizure previously, but I had a period of, I had another big epileptic seizure, and a period of sort of 8 years of instability. And I put that down to the sort of added stress. It's a known trigger, amongst other things, the stress and the tiredness and other things. So one of the only controllable things, and I've taken that away and taken that stress away. And I've been offered jobs before when I've been on supply, and they look at us like I'm slightly mad when I say no. It's something I can control.
Understanding. And when you were going through that period, I'm going to make a statement here, which, you can counter all you will. We speak to a lot of women, actually, Mark, and in our group. Sarah, what would you say the stats are on our gender where members are concerned in life after teaching? What are the stats?
93% female and 6% male and 1% who don't disclose.
Okay, so 93% of the Life After Teaching Facebook group with tens of thousands in is women. Now, I don't believe that the teaching ratio is 93% women are teachers, but I think you can see where I'm going with this, Mark. When you were going through it as a male teacher, did you talk to anybody about how you were feeling? Was there an avenue by which you felt you could be heard and you could talk about the impact on your physical and mental health?
Friends and family, definitely. And I did have one or two trusted colleagues, actually one or two trusted male colleagues who I know themselves had gone through similar. So I do believe that it's definitely not just me out there. It is other male teachers, that thousands of us going through exactly the same.
In the main, we tend to speak to and deal with a lot of women. What's interesting is whenever I've had to have conversations with male members on the phone in an evening who are in crisis, it's the wives who've got in touch with me. Will you speak to my husband? Because in some respects, we are representing, a lot of women. So with that in mind, it is always good to hear a male voice talk about the struggles within teaching, and I am sorry that you are that male voice. So you're talking to partners and friends, you've decided you're exiting, which was a hand that was dealt you really because you were made redundant at that point. Did you then start to look for another teaching job? What happened after your redundancy? What was the plan there?
I didn't want to go back in the classroom, no. I found a job for a charity. I absolutely loved it.
Right.
So still working with young people. I would have still done to this day, I think. But the charitable sector, being the charitable sector, funding was cut. And it didn't last too long.
Okay.
So I went on supply after that. Actually really quite enjoyed supply. I think I'm a bit of a sadist. And
oh, go on. Talk us through that one, because we don't often reel from that sentence. I think I actually enjoyed supply. What did you enjoy about the supply?
I like the change. I like going into different places, and I don't mind the uncertainty. I'm not fazed by that, and I've always had plenty of work through it. So I've been lucky with that.
So it was actually more liberating being
and I think for me, I've always got at the back of my head, if it's absolutely awful, I can pull the plug. I've never had to do it, and I've never felt like I wanted to, but I can always pull the plug. I'm not my own boss, but I've felt like I'm in charge of my own destiny.
I like the thought of that. So you've left the job that's been really the problematic one. You're in supply. Was it an overnight fix then? Did your anxiety go? Did your epilepsy get under control? Or did it take you a long time to come to terms with that experience in the classroom?
By that point, my epilepsy was under control. I could drive again. That was nearly 8 years that it took to get that under control. And even then, still wasn't talking about my epilepsy really. And now I talk about it to everybody and the kids. And
Why weren't you talking about epilepsy?
probably because that had been such a big thing for me until I didn't have my first seizure until I was 22.
Right.
And I thought I was like totally bulletproof. And then there's something like that to happen. I didn't have my second seizure till I was in early 30s. And it was such a big deal for us. It was just accepting that I had epilepsy. It was just very, very difficult. But now I talk about everybody, every kid, and it's so powerful when another kid will tell me, "Hey, I've got epilepsy as well," and I'm like, "Yeah, it doesn't have to stop you doing anything."
I think, Mark, there's something there for me about, and I'm going to generalize, but I think it's why we have so few men in the group, in terms of maybe it's more difficult. And you said something about you felt bulletproof, and then obviously it's really impacted you in terms of finding out that you're not bulletproof. And I think that's probably part of the barrier with men generally talking about their health, not just their mental health, but their health full stop.
Yeah.
So I think to take something positive from it, the fact that you will talk to anybody and everybody about it now is actually really powerful, because it's liberated you, but it's also educating other people that it's okay to talk about it.
Absolutely.
So moving from, you've coming through, you're doing bits of supply, king of your own castle is how I see it. Going along, you leave through no circumstances beyond your control, you leave the charity job. Talk us through this bit now, right? This is the bit that intrigued me. You are now a tutor on TV and film sets for kids who are actors. Oh my.
Yep.
Right. I also know now, unfortunately, Sarah, you're going to love this. He's bound by some of the biggest NDAs known to men with these film sets. So he can't say, even when I've begged him and gone, I'll take it to the grave, it's like, no, I need to explain to you the nature of an NDA, Sharon. I cannot tell you who the actress is. I cannot tell you who the actor is. No, I won't name. One of the most frustrating conversations I've ever had in my life, because I know there's so much that sits on the other side of you. So framed in what you can tell us without everybody getting sued, you work as a chaperone for kids on TVs and film set. Tell us, before you tell us how you got into it, what does that actually mean in real terms?
There's two jobs there, essentially. There's the tutor side, which is teacher for the kids and I liaise with the schools, and I tutor the kids in all of the subjects, which is great. I work with no more than 8 at a time, really, and it's really lovely. And quite often it's just one-on-one. And then there's the chaperone side, which is essentially a safeguarding type role. There's a lot of legislation in place about young people working on set, working in an adult environment. They're being paid to perform, and there's time pressures to make TV programs and films, and a lot of money involved. Just need to make sure that those young people are not being taken advantage of and not being made to work too many hours, getting plenty of breaks. They're not in any sort of danger, or they're not being asked to film something that's inappropriate. There's just all sorts there. It's a really interesting job. You get to do all sorts of really cool things, go to cool places. It's a really nice job.
What was interesting was you said to me, you taught all those different subjects. And we talked about that, how you take something, you skill yourself up, you learn it, you can now offer the full range of subjects. But they take education seriously on the set, don't they? So you still need to make progress. Tell us about some of your educational successes.
It's one of the things I'm most proud of. So some of the young people that I've worked with on set, it's super important that whatever I do with them, and no matter what their ability, that when they leave me on set, that they just sort of segue back into school without any sort of stress, and they're at the same point as their peers. But I've had young people who've taken the GCSEs whilst they've been working with me and achieved 8s and 9s. Other young people who, once they've finished the time on set and achieved awesome GCSEs like that, have then gone on and gone to universities, gone into really good universities as well, and then continued acting careers after that. Everything in between as well. Awesome SATs results. I could list them forever, the achievements that the kids have had. Even like tiny things that they achieve when they're on set with us. It's brilliant.
Can I just interject then? Am I to take from that you work with the full age range and the full subject range?
Yeah. So, for example, last year I split the cast into 2 because we had a big age range up from 9 to 16. So, and there was 14 of them. So you can only actually have 12 in a room, but because there was such a big age range, we'd split it and put 2 tutors in. And that just makes it much easier, and we can work with the kind of called it a lower school set, and it didn't split exactly by key stages or anything, but we just kind of worked as a lower school and an upper school. But yeah, and then work by the whole subject range.
That's kind of blown my mind a little bit, because I'm trying to imagine that translating into a school setting. And I'm going to say, even with just 14 kids of different age ranges and the different subjects, that takes some doing. That's impressive.
Legally, if I had that kind of range, I'd only be able to have 8 kids.
So my question is, obviously, pen's going crazy. How did you skill yourself up, Mark? How did you go from what had been computing and business studies to now, I'm assuming, offering English, maths, some science, some literacy, some numeracy? How did you do that?
Being computing and business, I've always taught maths. It's like, oh, you're a computing teacher. You can teach maths. So I've always taught maths. But the best training ground ever has been on supply. Food tech, anything on supply, I've taught it. And that's just, if I can do it with 30 kids in a classroom setting, then this is an absolute doddle.
I'll tell you what's interesting to me. Okay, so I've got this image in my head. Here's a guy who cannot mark this box of books. It's going back into to school. Cannot do, you've not got the time. You just cannot get round to doing this. However, the same guy is now skilled up in a multitude of subjects through different key stages. What's changed? Because you've not added an extra hour into the day. You've not travelled through time or done something like that. What changed within you to enable you to do all of these things?
Well, I'll tell you what did change. I was going to say, I don't know if it was within me. I didn't have anybody chipping away at us anymore. And I had me being able to repair my confidence and gradually regrow and just repair myself.
Wow.
And it was I was going to say it took a long process to get better, but it got worse before it got better. Mm-hmm. Because I hadn't recognised that where I was at first. So yeah, it definitely got worse before it got better. But yeah, it bounced back, and
they say, don't the darkest hour is the one before the dawn, isn't it? At the end of the day, and it's interesting. And you keep using the expression chipping away. And I know that that's almost maybe a bit of a euphemism. There's a vagueness attached to this idea of chipping away. But what you've just said to me is, it was bad management. It wasn't the job. It was the management of the people around you, because they were unrealistic, ridiculously unrealistic, you said. That didn't help. But once you were given the space to manage your own time, to look at your own workload, to make your own choices, you thrived. I think that's what you articulated beautifully. My thrival came because I removed myself from a toxic environment into this. Well, it sounds absolutely, because I've got this picture in my head, Sarah. I don't know about you. Let's see if we're on the same page. I've got all these like trailers where they're getting changed and there's stars in them. And then there's a big film set and there's a director with a big clapboard. And there's Mark with all these famous kids. And what's it like in your head that you're picturing what he's doing on a day-to-day basis?
I don't know. I've got Mark in the classroom kind of set up, and I've not got all the big starry spangly nonsense. I suspect it's probably a little bit more normal than that. Might be wrong, Mark.
You're both right. So, and depends on the production, really. Young people sometimes in what looks like a classroom, to all intents and purposes, and it's in a building that could pass for a school, and it just looks like that, and the room is the same. And then sometimes it's in one of these big trailer villages, and we'll shoot somewhere for a week, and then it'll move on, and we'll be on a location somewhere else, and it just looks like what you'd see, where they're strolling around on set, and they've got people walking around with a dressing gown and trying, "Where's my cappuccino?"
I love all this. I love it. Love it. I love it.
So can I ask a question, Mark? Do you work with a particular group of children on say a specific film or a specific TV show for a period of time, and then you move to a different role with a different group of children? How does it work? I've got many questions.
There's a show that I've worked on for quite a number of years, a kids' TV show. So I've worked on that for...
You said you could name this one.
So I can name that one. So I've worked on CBBC's The Dumping Ground for several years as tutor and as chaperone. That started off, that was the first job I got, and that was kind of how I just fell into it.
How did you fall into it? Go on.
I was asked to cover on a holiday, and I was just like, I love this.
Through a supply agency, wasn't it?
It was through supply, and I got on really well with the manager, and he was like, "You perfect for this. You can go and do it and see how you get on." So I did that, and I was like, "I love it. I'm going to properly upskill in this and get some more work in it." But they liked me and asked us back the next year.
Mark is the accidental chaperone.
Accidental chaperone. You know what it is? It's the supply gods were rewarding him, because there's the only teacher I've ever met in 30 years who says, "I don't mind supply." So the supply gods were obviously listening that day and saying, "Right, my son, you are the only person who champions us. We will open the doors to the dumping ground for you." Are you still with a supply agency now, Mark, or are you freelance under your own?
It keep me hand in for between projects, so that I'm constantly working. So if I'm not working on something, I've got to step into school. So I've actually been in school 3 days this week. So I stepped up a drama last week. Actually, that's wrong. I took a week off.
Oh no!
I took a week off out in term time. The first time in I don't know. That's the first time ever. It's like.
Did you feel like you were truanting? Did you think somebody's going to tap me on the shoulder? No. Did you love it?
Yeah, I haven't had a day off since April.
Wow.
So it's been like, it's been busy. So I've just like, I need a week off. And then
does it feel like work? Does it actually feel like you're working?
No, it's really good fun, but it can be very, very long hours.
Okay.
And it is full on. You can have a 7 o'clock call in the morning, and you can quite easily not finish till 7, but sometimes I'm not finishing till nearly 9 o'clock. So it is really, really long hours. It's really good laugh. The crew are great. Kids are always great. my primary objective is to, other than all the safeguarding side of things and making sure the kids' welfare, is to make sure the kids have a great time on set and remember it for all the right reasons.
Well, speaking of remembering things for the right reasons, fascinated, absolutely fascinated by all of the language you're using on set, the crew, the cast, all of that gets me every time. I want to bring this to a close today by asking you, Mark Thompson, what's your sliding doors moment?
Just really recently, I kind of had that moment where I quite often do it, actually. I was quad biking around Northumberland with some kids. I was looking around at the scenery, and I took a good picture. And when I got back, getting changed, out my helmet, out my overalls, sent that back to my partner, and I just put like work and a laughing crying face. It's not like work.
You're actually being paid to go around on quad bikes with kids, and rightly so. And they are the moments of joy. And I should imagine there are so many amazing memories that you've had since you've stepped out of the classroom. Would you still call yourself a teacher?
Yeah, I'll always be a teacher.
Beautiful. And that's made me smile, because from somebody who wanted to be a teacher whilst he was still in school himself, who went through not the greatest of experiences within schools, it fills me with personal joy that you still consider yourself, rightly so, a teacher, because it truly is your DNA. You're a dyed-in-the-wool classroom teacher, and it has been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. So on behalf of myself and Sarah and everybody who's listening with fascination, by the way, can I thank you, Mark, for your time with us today on the Pit Pony podcast.
Thank you.
I think we only got, I don't think we even came close to what that guy could have told us if he wasn't bound and gagged.
No, I think we've just taken a little bit of the orange peel and just, when you put your thumb in an orange peel and you just start to peel it back.
Yeah.
I think that's what, and I've got a gazillion questions, and I know he will never tell us the answer.
No, I don't think we could even take him out there and ply him with alcohol.
No.
I don't think we'll ever get to the back of who he's worked with.
But that is when an NDA is correctly used.
Go on. You're absolutely right. And we talk about that, don't we?
Yeah.
We talk about
NDAs are not in and of themselves a bad thing. They are there to protect, and in the particular circumstances that he's working in, they are there to protect all of the actors in terms of because they are themselves a product, and there has to be protection around them. But I can guarantee you that what will not be in Mark's NDAs will be a complete throwaway of all of his legal rights to do with his own protection. So there won't be throwaways of not being able to bring tribunals and things like that. And having talked to people about settlement agreements and the non-disclosure clauses in them, it's apparent that it's that's the issue for the teachers who are finding themselves bound by that. But that's an interesting discussion for a different day. But I just thought it was really interesting, because it isn't that NDAs in and of themselves are bad. And that was a classic example for me of why it was right and proper to have one.
an ethical NDA.
Yeah.
Which he never cracked. And know what I'm like as a tin opener. I was trying all angles.
Oh, I know.
Just tell me, I swear. And he wouldn't. But what was clear was, for those, I know people are only having the benefit of audio, but the man comes alive when he talks about working with kids.
Yeah. The difference between how he talked at the start of that slow process of his job as a teacher, the circumstances around it, chipping away at him, eroding his confidence. And we've talked about this often, the analogy of the boiled frog, that you don't realize your frog is in a beaker of water. It starts off cold. You gently turn up the temperature until the frog doesn't realize it has been boiled. And I think that's so common with teachers is there comes a point where they realize that they're boiling, but it's too late for them to get out of the water. And I do wonder for Mark, actually, had he not been made redundant, how life might have actually been different, because he articulated that, didn't he? He did not want to go. He did not want to not teach. So that redundancy, I look for the gift in every moment. That redundancy was a gift for Mark, I think.
100%. And it is an interesting one, because it's all he ever wanted to do. And then at the end, that's why I asked him the question. I don't often ask that question at the end. Do you still consider yourself a teacher? Because I think that's quite a really personal one to just ask off the hoof. But I felt compelled to ask him. And when he said yes without taking a beat, that filled me with so much joy, because he hadn't lost the identity of the thing he loved the most. And to be honest, he truly, truly is a teacher. He's reskilled across all of those different subjects. And when he was talking about doing that, because it's a chaperone / tutor, and that's what people can do in the world of tutoring. We talk about it all the time. What subject do you naturally feel you lean into? Now, if you've been a business and computer studies teacher like he has, who's dabbled in maths, hello caller, that was you, it wasn't a huge leap. So even if our listeners are not going down the route of chaperone, there's something to really unpick there about retraining in a subject that wasn't initially your specialism. I talk about it all the time, Sarah, with GCSE English. Particularly primary school teachers are frightened of the word GCSE. They think it's so highbrow and that there's no way they could possibly offer GCSE English as a tutor. But if you actually start with the examiner's report, the overview of the papers themselves, they're not a million miles away from SATs.
No, and that's it. It's interesting, because I hadn't realised beforehand that Mark was the same subject area as me, and I would always say that had been my biggest blessing, but also a bit of a curse for a number of years in school. That because of the nature of business studies, it does have a requirement for extended writing in exam questions. It's mathematical, it's this, it's that, it's the other. It lends itself to you going down a number of avenues, which is exactly what I did in schools. But it also makes it easy to transition to something else, because you have got that kind of multiple skill set within your own subject. So no, but it's interesting that for listeners won't see our reactions, the number of times where my jaw hit the floor, just in terms of very much when Mark started talking about what he does and how he does it, and that, you know, me safeguarding element and the welfare element of it, he really did come alive there. And it's clear that he's found somewhere that he really loves being.
And the fact he said, I love supply, that's refreshing, because we make an assumption that I speak to a lot of teachers who, when they want to come out, they say, there's no way I can do supply. That would be a nightmare, because they normally look at it through the lens of how maybe they've seen supply teachers treated in the toxic school environment they've had to leave. But he found it completely liberating. He goes in, he comes out, he's his own boss, he's freelance. I know he works freelance for other production companies as well. He does not go through the supply route. Now he's known on the circuit doing what he does, and it would just be absolutely amazing to shadow him for a day to see what he's like. And it'll be one of those where I don't think any one day will be the same as the next. He's got real variety, and it was nice, and I'm going to stand by it, to talk about gender,
to talk about it in terms of health and mental health. Very much so. It's I go back to something you said, which was to do with the group statistics, 93% women, 6% men. In terms of the last workforce statistics for teachers in England, I think it was something like 76% female, 24% male, there or thereabouts. So women are disproportionately represented within the profession. But I don't think that's the reason why men don't necessarily talk about it. And I know I'm in a very weird position talking about what I think men think when they're talking about it. But my experience with male friends is such that, and the husband, I mean, you know, my husband, they don't talk about stuff. Even when something's wrong, whether it's physical illness or something going on in terms of mental health, it's unusual for that to be an open conversation in the way that two women friends like you and I talk about anything.
A lot.
And all the time, every day. But it's really, I want us to give an opportunity for those conversations to happen. I know there's lots of organisations that are trying to support that, places like Andy's Man Club and things like that. But I was heartened by the fact that's our male guest who actually was able to talk quite openly about the impact that everything had on him.
He was a lovely, gentle. I think he'd have a great job reading children's stories because his voice was so melodic. It was just so calming. It was beautiful. Interesting, Sarah. If the split 76 women, 24 men, there and thereabouts, I wonder what percentage of the 24 men hold positions of leadership compared to the percentage of women.
That's interesting. I know there are some stats on that.
Yeah.
And I think it is a disproportionate percentage of the men are in leadership positions compared to the women. You know me. I love my stats. I have dug into it. It is interesting to look at it. And it's interesting to look at the different ways in which different groups, age groups, career stages are being impacted.
So I loved that one. I liked him. He was a really nice guy. I'd like to go out for a pint with him. He was that kind of a...
And you can't beat that accent. You can't beat that accent.
I mean, what was that programme in the 70s that was the Geordie? Was it When the Boat Comes In?
Yeah.
You shall have a little fishy on your list.
I'd gone to Auf Wiedersehen, Pet.
Had you?
Yeah.
Christ. I mean, I thought we were broad, but good God. That was the true pit pony accents. We're all on show there. Loved that episode. We'll definitely listen to that one again. And what a great guy who still, rightly so, considers himself a teacher. Right, my friend, let's call time and I'll see you on the other side.
On that note, Auf Wiedersehen.
Thank you so much for staying with us throughout another great episode. And on behalf of myself, Sarah Dunwood, and all at the production team, we appreciate your continued support. If you wish to contact me directly for a support session or a clarity call for your next steps, please find my link in the comments below. See you soon.